Doing this again? YouTube audience? Well, I mean, if you say so. If you've been following us on Facebook, basically, you know, there's this little segment we run there. It's called Roger's Cubicle Corner. Basically, I do an overview of a shuttle product, give you guys a breakdown, and see if it's a product that may interest you guys. In this case, we're going to do it for YouTube, you know, so you can see it at your own leisure. You don't have to be on live, essentially. And you can always reference this video for future reference. So here I have a DX30. It is our entry-level solution. It's a 1.3 liter, and you know, it's a fanless solution. I'll get more in depth into it, but essentially, why would you want to use this? What makes this so special? First of all, it uses an Apollo Lake generation processor, Intel Apollo Lake. It's kind of the next iteration of low-powered solutions from Intel. Not quite the Skylake used, a little bit less power, but still has a lot of features. Why would you want to use this? You know, you can use this as a thin client, you know, workstation computer, kiosk, hospitals, you know, since it's a fanless solution, you know, hospitals or any food industry may actually like to use a unit like this since it won't have any debris or dust going into the system. It's a fanless solution. And, you know, kind of your imagination, you know, end users tend to be a lot creative with this, you know, workstations. I've seen people hook this up to machinery, industrial grade machines with the RS-232 ports. So, I mean, ultimately the imagination, it's up to the imagination of the end user. You know, computers they're just an instrument. So this is just like an entry-level instrument, so to speak. So let's just break this unit down. Here in the front, we have the front I/O. You have two 3.5 millimeter audios for your headphone and microphone. So any audio equipment, you'll hook it up through there. See, you have a power button here. Still works. Power button, use that to power on the unit. You have an SD card here with a sweet racing stripe here. Makes our unit look extra cool. And from there you have two USB 3.0 ports for the USB functionality. Any USB devices. And also I believe you have some LED indicator lights here for your hard drive and your power. That way you know whether the unit's powered on or the hard drive is actually functioning. So if we flip this unit to the other side, there's a little more I/O ports. We have a coaxial connection here, which is for your Wi-Fi. So if you're going to be hooking this up wirelessly, boom, just hook up your antenna, done. We have this little cutout here, which is kind of a shuttle exclusive thing. I haven't seen it much on other units. Basically, it allows you to do two things. You can clear the CMOS with the appropriate jumpers here, the appropriate pins. You short those out. You can clear the CMOS as opposed to going into the unit and removing the battery. That's just a quick, easy way to do so. Another way, the other two pins are actually for externally powering on the unit. What I mean by that is, this is a base mountable unit. So therefore, if you have this hooked up on the back of a monitor or on the back of a machine, however you have this hooked up, sometimes it's a little hard to press the power button. So if you can either buy one of those power cables, you know, like $2-3, or you can actually make your own from an ATX desktop. You can rig your own, and essentially you can power on this unit without necessarily pressing this power button. So that's why it's there. It's kind of for your convenience. We have more USBs here, 4 of them. They're 2.0, I believe. You have PS2 ports, so if you have that legacy hardware you just can't get rid of, that mouse or keyboard, for whatever reason you just still have it, you love it to death, you can still use it. Or any PS2 legacy hardware. We have RJ45 here, 1 gigabit capable. It is an Intel i211 if I recall correctly. This can do dual display, so you have an HDMI and a display port. So whatever it means of connectivity, you're going to hook up your video, it's right there. Your DC in for your 40-watt external power brick. It runs off the 40-watt power brick, so that's how I'll be receiving power. And that's pretty much the exterior of the unit. So when you receive this, it's usually as a bare bone. So that means you have to pop in the memory and the hard drive. So you are the system integrator. So let's pop this thing open. It's very relatively routine process. Just 2 screws. 1 and 2. Oh, and I did forget to mention one of the most obvious perks is the 2 RS-232 ports. How can I forget about that? RS-232 for the legacy hardware. Anything that requires a serial connection, you know, printers, scanners, anything like that, feel free to hook it up to the RS-232 and it'll function as intended. A lot of POS, a lot of industrial machines still use a serial connection due to its linear connectivity. It's still very popular. For all you people screaming, why do people still use RS-232s? It's there for a reason. So to undo the unit, actually, you just undo the 2 screws and just slide it open like that. And you can just wiggle this out. And that's the top cover right there. So like I said, it's a fanless solution, so there's no fans. Everything's passively cooled. Very simple unit to work in. So all you have to do is to unscrew one more screw here. This little small one. And this reveals your 2.5-inch bracket. So this is where you're going to be hooking up your hard drive, your SSD. There is a height clearance. I don't recall off the top of my head what it is, but I'll show you where you can find that information later on in the video. So 2.5-inch mechanical SSD, your preference, your budget will dictate what goes in here. Here inside is the SATA connection, so the power and the data all in this one connection here. And here you see 2 DIMM slots, DDR3L, not DDR4, don't get that confused, or DDR3. DDR4 won't fit, DDR3 will, but it will not cause the unit to post, so keep that in mind. DDR3L, low voltage, 1.35 volts. Dual channel, 8 gigabytes max, so that's per Intel's recommendation on this processor right here. So if you populate it with 16 gigs or 32 gigs, you know it's at your own risk. You know, we recommend 8 gigs because that's what they said. So 2 sticks, 4x4, 8 gigs max is what it can support. Here is this heat sink for the fanless. Like I said, you don't have to use a processor. It's already in here. It's an embedded solution, SoC, system on a chip. So right here, J3355. It's a Celeron dual core, very adequate, very, like I said, it's more made for low power consumers, people who need the low power, who need an entry-level solution. J3355, it could still do a lot of work. It can still do 4K, it can still drive 2 displays. It can't do 2 displays in 4K, keep that in mind. It can drive 2 displays, but it can only do 1 in 4K. So single monitor signage works fine. 2 monitor signage works fine if you're going to use standstill images, stuff like that. So, or if you just want to play around with it as a workstation computer, it also works. So basically, passive solution, like I said, no moving parts here. 2 slots for your memory. Here is our Realtek 8188EE, which is the Wi-Fi. Single ABG, actually it's BGN, not ABGN. So no 5 gigahertz frequency, but it should get the job done at 2.4. And we have here, I don't know how well the camera is going to pick this up, but we have this little peg here. This is for your M.2 slot. Basically right here, the M.2 slot, it's for, Jesus, I almost dropped the whole thing. Basically the M.2 slot is for the 2280, 2260, or 2242. What is that, you ask? It's more hard drive space. So if one hard drive isn't enough, you can add another hard drive via the M.2. So you can actually fit 2 hard drives in here. No RAID 0, no RAID 1. Sorry guys, that's just product of the SoC of the J3355 processor. The chipset just isn't there. It's not like an H170 or a Z170 chipset. So keep that in mind, guys. Other than that, I'm looking here, nothing out of the ordinary. Doesn't look like I'm missing anything. And that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, this is the DX30. Like I said, it has a lot of features. You know, RS-232 for legacy hardware. It can drive 2 displays, 4K capable. The processor is already on board, so you don't need to buy a processor. You just basically populate it with your memory and your hard drive, and you should be good to go. Another thing to note, this is the J3355, so keep in mind, Windows 10 only. You pop in Windows 7, 8.1, may not work. Kind of the nature of the beast. What with the new cutting edge stuff like Kaby Lake and Apollo Lake, it's generally going to be Windows 10. For you Linux heads out there, for people who want Linux, basically my recommendation would be the latest distribution, the better. You know, I believe Ubuntu is on 16.10 right now. Basically stuff like that. Just keep in mind, this is an Apollo Lake. It's relatively cutting edge stuff. You may not find the driver support. It may be coming though. You know, it's ultimately up to the devs to include that kind of driver support. But ultimately, it's going to be up to the devs to do so. You know, the video support, the stuff like that. Just keep that in mind. So if you're going to play with Linux, feel free to do so. 16.10, I believe, does work fine. Ubuntu, if you have another distribution, the latest one, the better. I still can't guarantee it though. But other than that, DX30, you have it here. Very easy to build, very robust unit, like I said, relatively solid. I mean, like I said, it's up to you guys. If you guys like it, great. If you don't, I believe we have other stuff that we have to offer that may cater to your liking. So, I mean, that wraps it up. If you want to see our complete product line, if you want to see everything we have to offer, not just the DX30, visit us at the us.shuttle.com website. We have a complete lineup right there. So we have our nanos, our slims, our cubes. We have everything there. Furthermore, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, anything like that, services at us.shuttle.com, email there, all the hate mail, all the fan mail, etc., whatever you want to put. Feel free to let your voice be heard, essentially.